What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. And what we have going on today is absolutely jaw-dropping. We have Hurricane Milton currently closing in on the Yucatan Peninsula, moving just to the north of there, as a major catastrophic Category 5 hurricane. Here are the cliff notes we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. This is now has maximum sustained winds of 175 miles per hour and a pressure of 911 millibars, according to the last National Hurricane Center update. This is now the strongest hurricane in the Atlantic Ocean since Hurricane Dorian back in 2019. Milton explosively intensifies with 175 mile per hour winds. Residents in Florida are urged to follow advice of local officials. That's what we have going on right here. This is also a very small system as well. Hurricane force winds only extend outward 30 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds extend outward 80 miles from the center. So for context, this is smaller than Hurricane Andrew is right now. Hurricane Andrew had hurricane force winds at 35 miles, and then tropical storm force winds at 90 miles respectively. That's what we have going on as of right now. Here's the discussion that we have pulled up for 10 a.m. This was when Milton was originally thought to have been a Category 4, but here we go. Milton's remarkable rapid intensification is continuing. Satellite images show a small eye within the very cold central cloud cover, and the eye is becoming better defined. Data from the Mexican radar at Sabuquí, I apologize if I butchered that. It shows a small, closed eye with an intense eyewall presentation. The Hurricane Hunter aircraft earlier reported a peak flight level wind of 146 knots, and a Dropson data showed that the pressure had fallen to around 933 millibars. This was 4 hours ago, and now it's 9/11. Which has seen about a 22 millibar drop in 4 hours. The initial wind speed is set to 135 knots, which is an 80-knot increase in 24 hours. Just for context, 24 hours ago, this was a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Now, it's a 175-mile-per-hour hurricane. Let me go ahead and pull up the archives. This is as of 1 p.m. today, 1 p.m. yesterday. We were at an 80-mile-per-hour hurricane. So 80-mile-per-hour Category 1 to a 175-mile-per-hour Category 5. This amount of intensity has only been eclipsed by Hurricane Wilma and Hurricane Felix, both in 2005 and 2007 respectively. I believe this has surpassed Hurricane Felix's rate of intensification at this current point, but I'm not 100% sure at that current point. The hurricane is still moving east-southeastward at about 8 knots. Global models continue to insist that Milton will turn eastward as soon as the frontal low pressure area around the northeastern Gulf departs. This is the important stuff right here, right now. Milton is likely to become a Category 5 layer today. Literally, when was this? Literally 55 minutes later, they came out with a 160-mile-per-hour tag on this. So it arguably already was a Cat 5 at that current point. They just couldn't find the evidence to back it up. By tomorrow, its intensity should be dictated by any eyewall replacement cycles, which will likely cause the system to gradually weaken but grow larger. Eyewall replacement cycles, what they typically do is they basically another eyewall forms out, which is an outer eyewall. And it starts to kind of take all the energy away from the inner eyewall. Those two merge, and the storm expands in size. It's kind of like the figure skater expanding her arms out. And she moves slower, but ultimately she has a larger frame at that current point. That's exactly what an ERC pretty much is. It's the same physics. After 36 hours, Milton is expected to encounter a much less favorable environment with strong wind shear and dry air. Therefore, some weakening is anticipated before the hurricane reaches the Florida Gulf Coast. This is very important. However, the system is still likely to be a large and powerful hurricane at landfall in Florida, with life-threatening hazards at the coastline and well inland. After landfall, Milton should weaken and start extratropical transition, which should continue by hour 96. Here's what we had. The forecast, where we're at right now, has blown past the forecasts. Initially, this was forecast to be 165. Hell, even before that, this was forecast to be 110, then 115, then 120, then jumps up to 145, and now we're already blowing past it right now. So that's our big issue that we have right now. And if we go ahead and show you the cone on this right here, hurricane watches are in effect for pretty much the entire west coast of Florida with the exception of Monroe County and parts of the Florida Keys. Lake Okeechobee is under a hurricane watch right now. Pretty much a lot of western Florida is under a hurricane watch. And if you look at the exact track of this system is expected to hit Tampa Bay head on as a Category 3 hurricane. That would be absolutely devastating. And not only that, not just to mention the storm surge with this, we're now expecting 8 to 12 feet of storm surge in Tampa Bay. Helene, you had about 7 feet or so. So this is more than what you had with Hurricane Helene. And this system is coming right at you guys. And we need to pay very close attention to this. Of course, I'm well aware that there is a probability that this will shift further to the south. We've seen trends go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth this entire time. But as of right now, this is expected to hit Tampa Bay, and all the models have been very consistent at having the system hit right over Pinellas, right over Hillsborough County, which would absolutely be a very devastating storm because Tampa Bay lags behind almost all of Florida in terms of hurricane preparation. Their infrastructure hasn't exactly been updated to protect for hurricanes since the 1950s. The last major hurricane to make landfall was 1921. If this enters the Tampa Bay region, that'll be the new one right there and cause a lot of destruction in this part of the country right there. We're also expecting 5 to 10 feet of surge in Charlotte Harbor, as well as areas close to Lee County where Hurricane Ian made landfall 2 years ago. Those areas are just starting to recover, and another hurricane in that general area would absolutely be detrimental to it. Flash flooding potential, a lot of flash flooding expected for much of Florida right now. Something we're going to have to pay attention to right now, but this is the main focus from Jacksonville to Orlando to Tampa Bay. There's going to be a very high flash flooding potential at this current point in time. But that's what we have going on with Hurricane Milton in terms of the National Hurricane Center advisory. I'm also going to show you recon data. I'm also going to show you other stuff that I've been paying attention to, including satellite imagery, which we will start with right here. Satellite imagery has absolutely been killing it right here. Look at Milton right now. This is your classic buzzsaw storm right here. Kind of that look you see with Andrew, Wilma, Rita, all these major Category 5 hurricanes that hit. It has a buzzsaw of an eye. The eye is absolutely symmetrical right now, and you can tell based off of this right here how fast all this convection is wrapping around. You can tell by this that how strong this system is. 150 knots is 175 miles per hour. They're detecting a pressure of 909 millibars with this, which that would be the lowest pressure in the Gulf of Mexico since Katrina in 2005. It already is the lowest pressure since Katrina of 2005. Katrina got down to about 902 millibars, just for context, at its complete strength of 175 miles per hour. And that was a very big storm. Don't get me wrong. That was a very big storm. This is a much smaller storm that has that has about similar wind speeds. Those wind speeds are most likely going to increase a little bit. Personally, I think the ceiling right now is around 180, 185 miles per hour. But no, there's a lot of models saying, oh my God, this is going to get up to 200 miles per hour. That has never happened in the Atlantic Ocean. And there's only one time in recorded history that has happened ever anywhere in the world, and that was Hurricane Patricia in 2015. Part of the reason there's never been a 200 mile per hour hurricane in the Atlantic is because of it's not nearly as expansive as the Pacific Ocean is or the Indian Ocean is. It's the least expansive ocean out of the main four, where you have the Pacific, you have the Atlantic, you have the Arctic, you have the Southern, and you have the Indian Ocean. I said five. I said four. I meant five. Regardless of that, all points aside, this storm is very powerful. This storm is going to be very destructive, regardless of the intensity it makes landfall at. I want to make that perfectly clear. It's going to be destructive no matter what at this current point. Right now, based off of radar and based off of microwaved imagery from what I've been gathering from my guys at Storms United, it's not undergoing an eyewall replacement cycle, and we got to pay attention to this very quickly. We have to pay very serious attention to this entire time. Matter of fact, the entire state of Florida needs to be paying very close attention to this. let's go ahead and pull up some track models and the intensity runs. Track models want the system heading right to Florida. Majority of the runs want this to head just south of Tampa Bay, I'm noticing, which would be some good news, but it still wouldn't be very fantastic because Sarasota would be in the line of fire. Port Charlotte would be in the line of fire, but they are very keen in agreement with this. We're going to have to pay very close attention to that, but Tampa Bay is now to the south of the consensus of this, but we're going to have to pay very close attention to this right now. Intensity runs have absolutely been doing this right now. This is the intensity runs we're watching right there. Majority of the runs want this to weaken after about 36 hours or so and get down to Category 4 or Category 3 intensity as it approaches Florida. But some of them have been exploring the probability of this system being a Cat 5 at landfall, which I'm going to be very brutally honest and tell you guys this. That is very unlikely not going to happen. Primarily because you have wind shear entering the area, you have a drier air environment, as well as eyewall replacement cycles that we're going to be paying attention to. Matter of fact, I'll go ahead and show you those right now. Let's go ahead and pull up the shear forecast, as well as the moisture component right now, courtesy of the European model from this morning. This isn't just for Milton or anything like that. This is just for context in regards of pretty much what the synoptic conditions are like. This has nothing to do with Helene, not Helene, but Milton or any of these hurricanes right there. Let's go ahead and pull up the wind shear right here. Where it's at right now, it's in a pocket of wind shear, low wind shear, where pretty much it's under this trough right here. That's kind of helping enhancing the outflow, and part of the reason this is getting so strong right here. But then as it moves towards western Cuba, it starts to move further to the north and enter this huge area of wind shear right now, which is ultimately going to tear the system apart as it approaches Florida right there, mainly because you go from the system being at the perfect angle for shear to pretty much being rolling right through it, and there's too much shear for the system to overcome, and it's going to weaken as a result. Also because of dry air intrusions that are possible as well. As you can see right now, it's in a very moist pocket right now, but as it approaches western Cuba, partly due to wind shear, there's going to be some dry air intrusions that are going to be in there as it approaches Florida and makes landfall at such a strong strength. So we're going to have to pay close attention to it. Matter of fact, the wind shear map as of right now, it's in the perfect prime position right now for strengthening. That's why it intensified so much, and that's why I would argue it intensified so fast. But as it approaches Florida, it's going to be ramming into 50, 60 knots of wind shear, and it's going to ultimately help tear the storm apart unless the system pulls a barrel and says, fuck you, wind shear, and just keeps going as a Category 4 hurricane. That happened before when it hit Jamaica. I know I said a curse word on this. I do apologize for that, for those who were offended by that, but I feel like this is one of those scenarios that kind of warrants that. But regardless of that, we still have to pay close attention to that anyway. So that's what we have going on in terms of the wind shear, in terms of the conditions. Let's check out the sea surface temperatures, because I also want to show you part of the reason why this intensified so much. Still 29 to 30 degrees Celsius of water. It's still going to be over those waters all the way up to landfall in Florida. And the ocean heat content map, this is also the reason why there's so much intensification going on. OHC of well over 100, pretty much all the way from where it developed to where it's at right now and all the way towards Florida landfall. So that's the thing that we're paying attention to as well, and I wanted to briefly touch up on that. Let's go ahead and finally show you the models. I don't like, this is not a very good sign right here. Tropical Tidbits is down. And I know a lot of people are accessing Tropical Tidbits as well. I will have to ask you guys to refrain from doing that, because what this is doing is it's not giving me the information to report to you guys, and I'm not able to dissect a lot of this information when I see errors like this, because what that tells me is there's a bunch of traffic in these runs. And as much as I know a lot of people are want to take a look at this system for themselves, I also need to take a look at it so I can report to you guys. So with that being said, just if you're using the Tropical Tidbits website, please refrain from using it every 5 minutes, so that way people like myself, David Schlotthauer, all the other weather YouTubers, all the other weather people like Weather Center Nazario, we can use that and get that data out to you guys. But with that being said, and ranting aside, here's what we have with the Halves B run. Halves B has really had this system explode. Gets down to an 897 millibar system with winds of 185 miles per hour. Then it undergoes an eyewall replacement cycle and then starts to deepen once again. This is taking a relatively long time to load right there. But regardless of that, it gets down to the 890s, 884 millibars. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't buy this. I do not buy it's going to get down to 884 millibars. 900? Yes. Maybe 898? Maybe. But 884, I don't buy it right now because we have eyewall replacement cycles, and also you're dealing with increasing wind shear as this moves towards Cuba. And this kind of reflects on that as it becomes much larger and ultimately makes landfall near Tampa Bay right here, just south of that. Actually, no, right over Pinellas County and Hillsborough County, which would ultimately be really bad news. Let's go ahead and show the Halves A run real quickly. I'm going to try to get these runs. Okay, come on. This is ridiculous. Regardless of that, though, once I get this up and running, I will show you the Halves A just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. But this has been crashing all morning because everyone's been just spamming it, and everyone's just been on it all up and down. Everyone's been using it, and the server data I'm guessing isn't really keeping up with how many people are using it. So regardless of that, continuing to rapidly intensify, continues to really ramp up in intensity. The Halves A, if we can go ahead and take a look at this, and as we get more frames to load from this, I really apologize for not being able to get this. It's just been so slow because so many people have been on that it's been kind of hard to gauge what's been going on. So regardless of that, though, still going to be a very powerful hurricane, still going to be a powerful Cat 5 for quite a while, and we will be streaming tonight and covering more of this. But regardless of that, I do want to take the last few minutes and kind of reflect on a few things very quickly. When I started Pat's Path Predictor, I never imagined a scenario where a Gulf system formed a kind of deriving off of the Eastern Pacific, comes over to the Bay of Campeche, organizes at a very rapid rate, and then explosively intensifies to the strongest hurricane we've seen since Dorian and the strongest Gulf hurricane we have seen since Katrina. Never in my wildest dreams have I seen would I imagine that right now. And one thing I want to make perfectly clear is you guys absolutely need to prepare for this, but I want to emphasize something very, very important. Do not panic. I understand that there's a lot of data and there's a lot of stuff to digest and a lot of stuff to go over and a lot of scary stuff right now. I get it. A 175 mile per hour Cat 5 is scary, but we need to remain calm. We need to prepare the best we can, and we will continue to keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. The best thing we can do is find all the data, release all the information out to you so you can prepare for it and so you can do what you need to do in terms of preparations. Now is not the time for panic. Now is the time to prepare. If you are told to evacuate, evacuate. If you are told to shelter in place, shelter in place. I never tell people to evacuate because that is not my job. My job is to give you all the weather information. I'm not law enforcement or anything like that. That's up to local officials to determine who evacuates and who doesn't. If you are in an evacuation zone and you are told to get out, it's for a reason. You need to get out because this is going to be a very destructive storm. That's what they're telling you. Florida's been declaring states of emergencies left, right, and center for these kinds of hurricanes. And I know a lot of people do not like Ron DeSantis, but the one thing I will absolutely give him credit for is his early response and preparation time. He declares states of emergencies before these systems are even named, because that's how seriously these storms need to be taken, as you see these conditions continue to show. So, with that being said, you need to listen to your local officials, prepare for this, and remain calm. And I don't normally ask people to share my videos. Normally, I expect, leave a like, subscribe, do all that stuff. But I want you to share this video. Make sure people see this to know how serious this is. I also want to make clear that I don't want anyone panicking over this. I want them to at least, if anything, see this rant towards the end of the video. So that way they know that I'm taking this seriously, and we need to calm down and we need to prepare. Make sure they see this so they know how serious this storm is. Make sure you reach out to your friends in Florida, your family in Florida, whoever lives in Florida, and make sure they see this. Because we need to get together and we need to do what we can to prepare for the storm. And once the storm hits, we need to get recovery efforts done as soon as possible. That is it for the weather today. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe.